My name is Jamie, and here's how my story begins. My sister turned the whole family against me, and they cut me off for 13 years. But then my small business took off, and I ended up buying a mansion. The next day, she showed up. "Hey, I'm moving in," she said. I was 23 when my sister Natalie destroyed my life with a single lie. We'd grown up in a typical middle-class household in suburban Ohio. Dad worked as an accountant, Mom taught elementary school, and Natalie was the golden child who could do no wrong. I was quiet or bookish, always in her shadow, despite being 2 years older. Our parents never hid their favoritism. Natalie got the bigger bedroom, the newer car, the enthusiastic praise for B- report cards, while my straight A's earned a distracted nod. I'd learned to live with it. What I couldn't live with was what happened the summer after I graduated from college. Natalie had married her high school sweetheart, Brett Sullivan, a year earlier. He worked construction and had dreams of starting his own company. I'd helped them move into their first apartment babysat when they wanted date nights, even co-signed a loan for Brett's truck when his credit fell through. We weren't close, but I thought we were family. Then I met Jason Kingsley at a work conference. He was everything Brett wasn't: polished, ambitious, working his way up at a tech startup. We started dating, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I had something that was truly mine, something Natalie couldn't claim or overshadow. 3 months into our relationship, Jason broke up with me over text. No explanation, no warning. He just said we were done and blocked me on everything. I was devastated. I called my mom crying, and she told me to come home for dinner that weekend. Maybe being with family would help. When I walked into my parents' house, the temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Natalie sat on the couch, tissues clutched in her hand, Brett's arm around her shoulders. Mom's eyes were red. Dad wouldn't look at me. "How could you, Jamie?" Mom's voice cracked. I stood frozen in the doorway. How could I? "What?" "Don't play innocent," Dad said. His voice was ice. "Brett told us everything." My stomach dropped. "Told you what?" Natalie looked up at me with tear-stained cheeks, and I saw something flicker in her eyes that made my blood run cold. It was there for just a fraction of a second. Triumph. "You made a pass at him," she whispered. "My own sister tried to seduce my husband." The room spun. "What? That's insane." "I never—" "Here is proof," Dad interrupted. "Text messages Natalie showed us." "What text messages?" "I never sent Brett." Jamie Brett said quietly, pulling out his phone. "We have the screenshots." He showed them a screenshot. The number was mine. The messages were explicit, inappropriate, undeniable. Except I'd never written them. "This is fake," I said desperately. "Someone fabricated this. I swear to God, I never—" "Stop lying!" Mom's shout made me flinch. "Your own sister. How could you betray her like this?" I tried everything. I showed them my phone. No messages to Brett existed in my records. I explained that numbers can be spoofed, that screenshots can be doctored. I begged them to believe me. Nobody listened. Natalie played her part perfectly. She sobbed about feeling unsafe, about how I'd always been jealous of her happiness, about catching me staring at Brett during family dinners. She was convincing because she'd had time to prepare. This wasn't a spontaneous accusation. It was calculated. Later, I figured out why. Jason had told me during our relationship that he'd received a job offer in Seattle with a 6-figure salary. I'd been excited for him, for us, but someone had sent him a series of emails from a fake account claiming to be me, saying I was only dating him for his money, that I was sleeping with other men, that I bragged to friends about manipulating him. Natalie had destroyed my relationship and my family in one coordinated strike. My parents told me to leave and not come back until I was ready to admit what I'd done and apologize. I refused because I hadn't done anything. That stubbornness cost me everything. They stopped answering my calls. My extended family took their side. Aunts and uncles I'd known my whole life blocked me on social media. Cousins who'd grown up with me treated me like a stranger. When I showed up at Thanksgiving, my mother answered the door only to tell me I wasn't welcome and closed it in my face. I spent that holiday alone in my tiny studio apartment, eating grocery store turkey and trying not to fall apart. The isolation was suffocating. I'd lost my family, my relationship, and most of my friends. People I'd introduced to Natalie who believed her version of events without question. I was completely alone at an age when I should have been building my life. So I did the only thing I could do. I left. I moved 6 states away to North Carolina, to a city where nobody knew me or my history. I got a job as a marketing coordinator at a small firm, found a cheap apartment, and tried to rebuild from nothing. Those first years were brutal. I worked 60-hour weeks, not because I was ambitious, but because going home to an empty apartment made me want to scream. I had no family to call on holidays, no safety net if things went wrong. Every achievement felt hollow because there was nobody to share it with. But something shifted in my third year there. I'd been managing social media campaigns for local businesses, and I realized I was good at it. Really good. I understood how to tell stories that connected with people, how to build brand loyalty, how to turn small companies into recognizable names. I started freelancing on the side. One client became 2, then 5, then 12. By year 4, I quit my job and opened my own digital marketing agency, Hartfield Media Solutions. The business grew faster than I'd imagined. I hired my first employee, then a second. We landed a major retail client that led to 3 more. Within 2 years, I had a team of 15, and we were billing $500,000 annually. I threw myself into work with manic energy. Every success was proof that I didn't need them. Every new client was validation that I was worth something despite what my family believed. By year 8, we'd expanded to 3 offices and were managing campaigns for national brands. By year 10, we'd gone international. Revenue hit 8 figures. And suddenly I wasn't just successful, I was wealthy. I bought a penthouse downtown. I drove a Tesla. I wore designer clothes to client meetings and donated generously to charities. The girl my family had thrown away had built an empire from nothing. But I never contacted them. Pride wouldn't let me. They'd made their choice, and I'd made mine. 13 years after that horrible dinner, I bought the mansion. It wasn't practical. I lived alone, didn't entertain, and barely had time to enjoy my penthouse. But I'd driven past this property for years, a sprawling estate on 8 acres with a circular driveway fountain and columns that made it look like something from a magazine. It had been owned by a manufacturing executive who had retired to Florida, and when it hit the market, I made an offer the same day. $3 million cash. The realtor had looked at me like I was insane, but I didn't care. I wanted it. I wanted the physical proof that I'd made something of myself, that the girl they discarded had become someone extraordinary. The sale closed on a Tuesday. I took a bottle of champagne and sat alone in the massive empty living room, looking out at the manicured grounds, and felt absolutely nothing. I had won, so why did it feel so hollow? The next morning, I was meeting with my contractor about renovations when my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown Ohio number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Oh my God, you answered. Natalie's voice was bright, cheerful, like we just talked yesterday. I wasn't sure this was still your number, Jamie. My hand tightened around the phone. How did you get this? I have my ways. Listen, I heard you bought a house. Actually, I saw pictures online. It's gorgeous. You've done so well for yourself. The casual tone made my skin crawl. What do you want, Natalie? Can't a sister just check in? It's been too long. Way too long. We should fix that. We have nothing to fix. You destroyed my life. Oh, come on, Jamie. That was so many years ago. We were kids. Water under the bridge, right? I felt rage building in my chest. You fabricated evidence to make our family think I tried to seduce your husband. You isolated me from everyone I knew. I spent 13 years alone because of you. You're being so dramatic, she said. Everyone knows siblings fight, but family is family, right? That's actually why I'm calling. Bile rose in my throat. Brett and I are going through a rough patch. Well, honestly, we're getting divorced. It's been really hard on me and the kids. Kids. She had children now. The thought made me feel strange. I'm sorry to hear that I lied. Thanks. You're so sweet. Anyway, the divorce is messy, and I'm going to need somewhere to stay while everything gets sorted out. Mom and Dad's place is too small, and I thought since you have that huge house now, it would be perfect. I could move in with the kids just temporarily, and we could finally reconnect. Doesn't that sound amazing? I almost laughed. The audacity was breathtaking. Let me get this straight. You want to move into my house. The house I bought with money, I earned building a business from nothing after you made sure I had nobody. Don't be like that. We're family. No, we're not. You stopped being my family 13 years ago. Mom and Dad would be so disappointed to hear you say that. They've been asking about you. You know they'd love to reconnect. That's when I understood. She hadn't called because she missed me or felt guilty. She'd called because she was desperate and thought she could manipulate me the way she had when we were younger. But I wasn't that girl anymore. Tell Mom and Dad they made their choice. They believed your lies without giving me a chance to defend myself. They threw me away like garbage, and now you think you can show up and ask for favors. I'm your sister. You were never my sister, Natalie. Sisters don't destroy each other's lives for sport. I hung up and blocked the number. For a moment, I felt powerful. Then my phone rang again, this time from my mother's number. Against my better judgment, I answered. How dare you speak to your sister that way? Mom's voice was sharp with disapproval. After everything she's been through with her divorce, and you're so selfish you won't even help her. Selfish. Are you kidding me right now? She told me about the house. You have plenty of room. It's the least you could do. The least I could do for the person who fabricated evidence against me and convinced you all I was some kind of predator. Oh, you're still on about that. It was years ago, Natalie apologized. My blood went cold. She what? Natalie apologized. Well, not exactly apologized. More like admitted she'd exaggerated things because she was emotional and going through a rough time in her marriage. We all make mistakes. She apologized, I repeated slowly. When? A few years ago. We forgave her. Obviously. Family forgives family. Now it's your turn to forgive and move on. They'd known. For years. They'd known she'd lied. And nobody had thought to reach out to me. Nobody had apologized. Nobody had acknowledged the 13 years of isolation they put me through. Let me make something very clear, Mom. I don't forgive her. I don't forgive you. I don't forgive any of you. Don't you dare take that tone with me. I'm not done. Natalie can figure out her own housing. She's an adult. If she's going through a divorce, she can stay with you or Brett's family or get her own apartment like the rest of the world. She's not moving into my house. She's not welcome in my life. None of you are. You've become so cold, I don't even recognize you. Good. The girl you knew died 13 years ago when her family abandoned her. What's left is someone who doesn't need you anymore. I ended the call and turned off my phone. The next few weeks were chaos. Relatives I hadn't heard from in over a decade suddenly had my email, my work number, even my office address. They all had opinions about my cruelty and my obligation to family. Some tried guilt, some tried anger. A few tried to play mediator, suggesting family therapy or reconciliation meetings. I ignored every single one. Then Natalie showed up at my office. My assistant Kennedy called me from the front desk. There's a woman here claiming to be your sister. She has 2 kids with her. Should I send her back? Absolutely not. Tell her I'm unavailable. She says she'll wait. She can wait forever, Kennedy. I'm not seeing her. I watched through my office window as Kennedy relayed the message. Natalie's face went from hopeful to confused to angry. She said something sharp, gesturing wildly, and one of the kids, a girl around 10, started crying. I felt a pang of guilt, then squashed it. Those kids weren't my responsibility. Their mother should have thought about their stability before burning every bridge she built. Natalie camped out in my lobby for 3 hours before security finally escorted her out. She tried twice more that week. The second time she brought our father, who stood in reception demanding I come out and be reasonable Jamie. I had Kennedy call the police and threaten a trespassing charge. They didn't come back after that. But the emails continued. Natalie's were increasingly desperate. Brett had stopped paying temporary support. She couldn't afford rent. The kids were scared and confused. Didn't I have any compassion? I deleted everyone without reading past the first line. Then my mother sent one that made me stop. Your father had a heart attack last week. He's stable now, but the doctors say stress is a major factor. Natalie and the kids are living in their car. Is this really what you want? Is your pride worth destroying what's left of this family? I stared at that email for a long time. Part of me, the part that was still that 23-year-old girl who just wanted her parents to love her, wanted to cave. Wanted to be the bigger person, to offer help, to fix everything. But the rest of me remembered sitting alone on Thanksgiving crying into cheap wine. Remembered job interviews, where I had nobody to celebrate with when I got hired. Remembered building my company through 70-hour weeks with no support system, no safety net, nothing but my own determination to prove I was worth something. They'd had 13 years to reach out, 13 years to question Natalie's story, 13 years to wonder if maybe they'd been wrong. And they had chosen silence. I forwarded the email to my lawyer, Christopher Ashford, with a simple question. Can they sue me for any kind of support? His response was immediate. No. You have no legal obligation to adult siblings or parents who willfully cut contact. Save these emails in case they escalate. I started a folder labeled Family and moved all their messages there without responding to a single one. Months passed. The requests became less frequent, then stopped altogether. I heard through a former mutual friend that Natalie had moved in with our parents, after all that their retirement had been delayed to help support her kids, that Dad was working part-time at a hardware store to make ends meet. I felt nothing. My business continued growing. We landed a contract with a Fortune 500 company that tripled our revenue. I hired 100 new employees. I bought a vacation home in Colorado and a boat I barely used. I dated occasionally, though nothing serious. I had friends, real friends, who knew my history and stood by me anyway. I had everything except family. 2 years after Natalie's first phone call, I received a letter. Not an email, an actual handwritten letter forwarded from my old apartment address. It was from Brett. I know you have no reason to read this or believe anything I say, but I need to tell you the truth. Natalie made me lie about the text messages. She created them herself, took my phone while I was sleeping, and set the whole thing up. When I found out and confronted her, she threatened to take the kids and claim I was abusive if I didn't back her story. I was a coward. I went along with it. My hands shook as I read. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. But I wanted you to know that I told your parents the full truth during our divorce proceedings. I showed them evidence of what Natalie did, emails she'd sent to your boyfriend Jason, the fake text messages, everything. They know. They've known for 18 months and they still haven't reached out to you, which tells you everything you need to know about them. I destroyed your life to protect mine, and I'm sorry. That's all. Just sorry. I read the letter 3 times, then put it in a drawer and tried to forget about it. But knowing they'd had proof of their mistake for a year and a half and still chose pride over reconciliation changed something in me. It crystallized my decision into certainty. I would never let them back in. 3 years after buying the mansion, I hosted my first major event there, a charity gala for youth mentorship programs. 200 guests, live music catering from the city's best restaurant. We raised $500,000 in one night. I gave a speech about overcoming isolation and building success without a support system. I talked about the importance of chosen family and creating your own path. I didn't mention my biological family by name, but everyone who knew my story understood who I was talking about. The local newspaper covered it. My photo ended up in several publications, standing in my ballroom in a designer gown, surrounded by successful people who respected and admired me. 3 days after the gala, I received a Facebook friend request from someone named Emma Sullivan. The last name caught my attention immediately. That was Brett's surname. I clicked on the profile and my heart stopped. It was Natalie's daughter. She was 17 now, with Natalie's dark hair, but Brett's hazel eyes. Her profile picture showed her in a soccer uniform smiling at the camera. She looked happy, normal. I stared at the request for 20 minutes before declining it, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. This girl hadn't done anything to me. She was a child when everything happened, probably didn't even know the full story. Maybe she'd just seen my name somewhere and was curious about the aunt she'd never met. Or maybe Natalie had put her up to it. Either way, I couldn't risk it. Opening that door, even a crack, would let them all back in, and I'd worked too hard to build these walls. Sarah found me that evening, sitting in my home office, staring at nothing. You okay? She asked, settling into the chair across from my desk. Natalie's daughter tried to add me on Facebook, I said quietly. Sarah's expression hardened. She'd been there through the worst of it, had helped me, while I cried during those early years in North Carolina, had talked me off the ledge more times than I could count. She hated my family with a protective fury that sometimes surprised even me. What did you do? I declined it. Good. She leaned forward. Jamie, they don't get to cherry pick when they want you in their lives. She's just a kid, though. She's 17, old enough for Natalie to tell her the truth if she had any integrity. Her words hit hard, but the image of that girl in her soccer uniform stayed with me for weeks. Work became my refuge again. We were in the middle of expanding into European markets, which meant conference calls at odd hours and frequent trips to London. I threw myself into the logistics, grateful for the distraction. During one of these trips, I met Thomas Brennan at a networking event. He was British charming, in an understated way, and ran a successful consulting firm. We hit it off immediately, bonding over war stories about difficult clients and the challenges of scaling a business. By the third night, we'd ended up at a quiet pub near my hotel, talking until closing time. So you really have no family at all? He asked after I'd given him the abbreviated version of my history. I have family, I said softly, just not the biological kind. That must have been incredibly difficult, Jamie, building everything alone. It was. But it also made me stronger than I ever would have been otherwise. I swirled the wine in my glass. Sometimes I wonder who I would have become if it hadn't happened. If I'd just stayed in Ohio, worked some ordinary job, showed up to family dinners every Sunday. Would I have ever pushed myself this hard? Would I have ever discovered what I was capable of? You think you needed the trauma to succeed? No, I said. But I think the trauma forced me to find resources I didn't know I had. It's not that I'm grateful for what happened. I'm not. But I can acknowledge that it shaped me. Thomas studied me with an expression I couldn't quite read. You're very self-aware. Most people spend their whole lives running from pain instead of examining what it taught them. We started a long-distance relationship after that. He'd visit North Carolina every few weeks, or I'd fly to London between projects. It was easy, comfortable. He never pushed for more information about my family than I was willing to give, never suggested I should try to work things out the way some previous boyfriends had. 6 months in, he proposed. We were in Scotland on a weekend getaway, standing on a cliff overlooking the ocean, and he pulled out a ring. "I know we haven't known each other that long," he said, "but I've never been more certain of anything. You're brilliant and strong, and you don't need anyone, which is exactly why I want to be the person you choose. Marry me, Jamie." I looked at the ring, at his hopeful face, at the life he was offering. Partnership, companionship, someone to build something with, and I said, no. The hurt in his eyes was immediate. Can I ask why? Because you're right. I don't need anyone, and I spent 13 years learning to be okay with that. Marriage would mean compromise, merging lives, making decisions together. I don't know if I can do that anymore. I don't know if I want to. "We could take it slow," he offered gently. "Thomas," I said, "you're wonderful. You really are. But I think I've been alone too long. I've built my entire life around self-sufficiency. Letting someone in that completely, it terrifies me more than being alone does." We broke up that weekend. He took it with grace, said he understood. Hoped we could stay friends. We tried for a few months, but it was too awkward. Eventually, we stopped talking altogether. Sarah thought I was insane. "You had a good man who loved you, Jamie," she said, pacing in my kitchen. "And you threw it away because what? You're scared." "I'm not scared," I argued. "I'm realistic. I've spent nearly 15 years building walls. I can't just tear them down because someone asks nicely." "So you're just going to be alone forever? That's your grand plan?" "I'm not alone. I have you. I have Kyle. I have Kennedy. I have friends and a career and a life I love." "But you don't have intimacy," she said bluntly. "You don't let anyone close enough to really know you." Her words stung because they were true. I'd become so good at protecting myself that I'd forgotten how to be vulnerable. Even with my closest friends, there were parts of me I kept locked away. The truth was, Natalie hadn't just stolen my family. She'd stolen my ability to trust that people would choose me when it mattered. Every relationship, after that, romantic or otherwise, came with the underlying fear that one day they'd believe a lie about me too, that I'd be abandoned again without warning. I started seeing a therapist after that conversation. Dr. Patricia Morgan specialized in family estrangement and complex trauma. During our first session, I laid out the whole story clinically, without emotion, like I was describing someone else's life. "You've intellectualized your pain," she observed. "Turned it into a narrative about success and revenge, rather than dealing with the actual hurt." "I've dealt with it," I insisted. "I built an entire company. I have a great life." "You've coped with it," she corrected gently. "That's not the same as processing it." Over the following months, she helped me unpeel layers I didn't even know existed. The anger I buried, the grief over losing not just my family but my entire support system, the guilt I felt over my niece and nephew growing up without knowing me, the fear that maybe somehow I deserved what happened. That last one was the hardest to confront. Logically, I know I didn't do anything wrong, I told her during one session. But there's this voice in my head that says, if I'd been a better daughter, a better sister, maybe they would have believed me. Maybe I wasn't worth believing in. That's the internalized message from years of being the scapegoat in your family system, Dr. Morgan explained. Your parents' favoritism of Natalie taught you that your worth was conditional, that you had to earn love through achievement. When they believed her over you, it confirmed your deepest fear that you weren't valuable enough to fight for. Hearing it stated so plainly broke something open in me. I cried in her office for the first time, really cried, in a way I hadn't let myself, since those early days in North Carolina. The work was brutal. It would have been easier to keep pretending success was enough. That money and status filled the void. But I'd spent 15 years running from the pain and I was tired. Dr. Morgan helped me understand that my refusal to reconcile with my family wasn't just about pride or revenge. It was about self-preservation. They'd shown me who they were when I needed them most. Believing them now would be foolish, not forgiving. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation, she told me one afternoon. You can forgive them for being flawed, limited people, and still choose to protect yourself from future harm. Those aren't mutually exclusive. Around this time, Kennedy came to me with concerning news. Someone's been calling the office repeatedly, she said, claiming to be your father, saying there's a family emergency. He won't give details. My stomach tightened. He said, if Jamie doesn't call me back, I'm going to show up in person. Should I alert security? Part of me wondered if someone had died. But if that were true, they could have sent an email or had the police do a wellness check. This felt like manipulation. I had Christopher draft a cease and desist letter. If my father or any family member attempted to contact me at work again, we'd pursue harassment charges. It was harsh but necessary. The calls stopped. 2 weeks later, I received a package at my home address. No return address, but the handwriting on the label was my mother's. Inside was a shoebox full of old photographs. Me as a baby, family vacations, school pictures, birthday parties. A note on top read, "Thought you might want these. Despite everything, you're still our daughter. Love, Mom." I sat on my kitchen floor, surrounded by images of a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. There I was at 7, gap-toothed and grinning arm around Natalie at the beach. At 12, awkward and braced, standing between my parents at my middle school graduation. At 16, holding my first place science fair trophy, while Dad beamed beside me. Evidence of a time when I believed I was loved. The cruelty of it was exquisite. These photos were supposed to make me nostalgic, to soften me, to remind me of better times so I'd forget what came after. As if a few happy childhood memories could erase 13 years of abandonment. I called Sarah. "They sent me old family photos," I said. "Jesus Christ," she muttered. "They're really pulling out all the stops, aren't they? What are you going to do with them?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Burn them, trash them, I don't care. Just don't let them get in your head, Jamie." But they were already in my head. I couldn't stop looking at that little girl who had no idea what was coming, who trusted her family completely, who thought love was unconditional. Dr. Morgan and I spent an entire session on those photos. "It's okay to mourn that little girl," she said gently, "to grieve for the innocence she lost and the family she thought she had. That grief doesn't mean you have to let them back in." I kept the photos. I don't know why. Maybe because they were proof that it hadn't all been bad once. Maybe because someday I'd want to remember where I came from. Or maybe I just wasn't ready to completely sever that last thread connecting me to my past. The business continued its upward trajectory. We opened an office in Singapore, then Sydney. Our client list read like a who's who of global brands. Industry publications featured me in profiles about self-made entrepreneurs and women in business. I gave keynote speeches at conferences, sat on panels, mentored young professionals trying to break into the field. From the outside, I had everything. But late at night, alone in my mansion, I'd sometimes walk through the empty rooms and feel the silence pressing in. I'd wonder if Thomas had been my one chance at building something real with someone, and I'd sabotaged it because I was too damaged to take the risk. Sarah's words haunted me. "So you're just going to be alone forever? That's your grand plan." Maybe I was. The holidays were always the hardest, Thanksgiving especially. No matter how many Friendsgivings I attended or hosted, there was always that underlying awareness that other people were with their families while I was with friends who felt obligated to include me. The year I turned 39, I decided to do something different. Instead of pretending to be festive, I booked a trip to Tokyo. Solo. Just me, exploring a city where I didn't speak the language, where I could be completely anonymous. It was exactly what I needed. No expectations, no forced cheer, no pretending everything was fine. Just quiet observation and the freedom to feel however I wanted to feel. On Thanksgiving Day, I was sitting in a small ramen shop in Shibuya when my phone buzzed with a notification. Natalie had tagged me in a Facebook post. My privacy settings should have prevented that, but apparently she'd found a workaround. The post was a photo of our extended family at Thanksgiving dinner. Parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, Natalie, and her kids. Everyone smiling at the camera. The caption read, "So grateful for family today. Even when we're not all together, you're in our hearts. Miss you, Jamie." The last part was clearly directed at me. Someone had screenshotted the post and sent it to me, probably a distant cousin who thought I should see it. The post had dozens of comments from relatives talking about how family was everything, how life was too short for grudges, how forgiveness was divine. I blocked her immediately and deleted the screenshot, then spent the rest of the meal shaking with anger. The manipulation was so transparent, it would have been laughable if it didn't hurt so much. She was weaponizing social media to create a narrative where I was the villain who'd abandoned them rather than the victim they discarded. I finished my ramen, paid, and walked out into the Tokyo night. The city pulsed with energy and light. Millions of people living their lives completely unaware of my existence. It was comforting somehow, a reminder that my pain wasn't the center of the universe, that life continued whether or not my family acknowledged me. By the time I returned to North Carolina, I'd made a decision. I was going to stop letting them live rent-free in my head. Every time I reacted to their attempts at contact, every time I let their messages upset me, I gave them power they didn't deserve. So I created a new email filter that automatically archived anything from their addresses. I locked down every social media privacy setting. I briefed my entire staff on the situation and made it clear that anyone who put a family member through to me would be terminated immediately. Then I focused on what I could control: my business, my friendships, my therapy, my life. Dr. Morgan called it radical acceptance. Not forgiving them or reconciling, but accepting that this was my reality and choosing to build a meaningful life anyway. You've spent 15 years proving them wrong, she said. Maybe it's time to stop proving anything and just live for yourself, Jamie. It was harder than it sounded. The need for validation ran deep. Every success still came with a reflexive wish that I could share it with parents who cared, with a sister who was actually happy for me. But gradually that wish faded. Not completely, I don't think it ever would, but enough that it stopped dictating my choices. I started dating again casually. Nothing serious, no pressure, just getting comfortable with letting people see the real me, walls and all. Some stuck around, most didn't. That was okay. I took up painting, discovered I was terrible at it. Did it anyway because it felt good to create something with no commercial purpose. I traveled more, not for work, just for the joy of experiencing new places. I volunteered with a mentorship program for young women from difficult family situations. Found purpose in helping others navigate the kind of isolation I'd experienced. Slowly, life became about more than just survival or revenge. It became about actually living, which is why when my mother called years later expecting me to drop everything and welcome them back, I could refuse without second-guessing myself. I'd built something real, something that was mine, and I wasn't about to let the people who'd thrown me away claim any part of it. I found out later that my mother saw one of those articles. She called from a different number. I didn't recognize it, so I answered. "That should have been us," she said without preamble. "We should have been there celebrating with you. That's what families do." "You're right," I said calmly. "That is what families do." Silence. "But you're not my family," I continued. "You gave up that right when you chose a lie over your daughter. We made a mistake. You made a choice. Mistakes are accidental. You deliberately decided I was expendable. You had evidence of the truth and still waited 18 months to reach out. And even then, you're not apologizing. You're just upset you're missing out on my success." "That's not fair," she argued. "Life isn't fair," I said quietly. "I learned that when I was 23 and lost everything. You're learning it now. The difference is I didn't deserve what happened to me. You do." I hung up and changed my number the next day. Last month, I celebrated my 40th birthday with a small dinner party. 12 people who'd been in my life through the hard years, who knew me when I had nothing, who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. My best friend Sarah, who I met in North Carolina during my first year there. My business partner Kyle, who joined when we were just 5 people in a cramped office. Kennedy, who started as my assistant and is now our COO. People who chose to be in my life and earned their place there. We had dinner on the mansion's terrace overlooking the gardens. Someone made a toast about found family being stronger than blood family. Everyone raised their glasses, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I don't know what happened to Natalie. I don't know if my father recovered from his heart attack, or if my mother still works at that elementary school. I don't know my niece and nephew, and I probably never will. And I'm okay with that. Some people think I'm cruel. They hear the story and say I should forgive, that life is too short for grudges, that blood is thicker than water. They don't understand that forgiveness isn't about them, it's about me. And I don't forgive people who aren't sorry, who only want reconciliation when it benefits them. My family didn't cut me off because of something I did. They cut me off because of something Natalie claimed I did, without evidence, without giving me a chance to defend myself. And when they learned the truth, they still chose pride and comfort over making amends. That's not family. That's just people who happen to share my DNA. The mansion sits on its 8 acres, beautiful and peaceful. I walk through rooms I've decorated exactly how I want them, with no one to please but myself. I work in a company I built with my own hands, surrounded by people who respect me. I travel when I want, donate to causes I believe in, and live exactly the life I choose. Natalie wanted to move into my house because she thought I owed her something. She thought the scared, desperate girl she betrayed would cave under pressure, would choose being the bigger person over self-respect. She was wrong. I don't owe her anything. I don't owe any of them anything. The only person I owe is myself. And I paid that debt by building a life they can't touch, can't diminish, and can't take away. Sometimes revenge isn't about confrontation or dramatic gestures. Sometimes it's simply living well while they watch from the outside, knowing they had their chance and threw it away. With this, the full original story has been rewritten according to all your rules.